Makako, and good afternoon. Mahalo for joining today's joint AEN-HRE hearing. It's Monday, April 14th, 2025, and we're convened in room 225 and video conferencing, which includes the audio and video of remote participants, and it's being streamed live on YouTube. In the unlikely event that anything happens and we have to cut the hearing short, we'll reconvene to discuss any outstanding business, and a public notice will be posted on the legislature's website. Because of our 90-minute time limit, there will be a 2-minute time limit for all testifiers, and we'll have a virtual countdown timer on the Zoom screen. One item on the agenda, HCR 130 HD1, urging the state, counties, and other relevant agencies to provide increased and sustained funding to the invasive species committees and Hawaii Ant Lab within the Pacific Cooperative Studies Unit of the University of Hawaii at Manoa. First up to testify is Department of Agriculture.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chairs, members of the committee. Cedric Gates here on behalf of the Department of Agriculture. The department stands on its written testimony, offering comments and supporting the intent. Mahalo.
Thank you, Cedric. Next is Stephanie Easley online for CGAPs. Aloha, Stephanie.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Stephanie Easley with CGAP's Coordinating Group on Alien Pest Species, support of HCR 130, and appreciate your consideration of the resolution today. The Island-Based Invasive Species Committees get so much done with so few dollars. They have a true passion for their mission in protecting their islands from invasive species impacts. They carry out control and eradication actions on invasive species, including invasive plants that no one else is working on, such as the devilweed that Bisque mentioned in their written testimony, among many, many others. Hawaii Ant Lab is right there with them, conducting research and providing control for ants despite their historically uneven funding and the recent inability to even compete for HGOA ant control contracts. We hope this resolution might encourage HGOA to use some of the new increased biosecurity funding they've received from you, the legislature, to pay for the gap filling work done by the ISCs and HALs. In addition to control projects, they are also great at outreach and education. At the end of the day, that is going to be the key to winning the battle against invasive species. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next is Shea Honavar from UH.
Good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, and members of the committee. My name is Shaya Honavar. I'm the director of the Pacific Cooperative Studies Unit, and I'm here on behalf of the University of Hawaii. The University of Hawaii supports HCR 130 HD1, and I'm available here for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shaya. Also, we have Michelle Montgomery, Taya Penniman. Michelle is from the Hawaii Ant Lab. Taya Penniman's from Maui Invasive Species. Franny Brewer from Big Island Invasive Species Committee, and Sherry Pollock is all in support. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure, please come forward.
Aloha, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. My name is Nate Doobie, speaking on behalf of the Oahu Invasive Species Committee. I'm the manager at the Oahu Invasive Species Committee. I just want to offer our strong support and here to answer any questions. The fight against invasive species is very difficult, and as previous testifiers had mentioned, having any kind of sustained resources is really going to allow us to plan better and have a much better shot at eradicating a lot of these problematic priority pests. So here to answer any questions you folks might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nate. Members, any questions?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, we have one more testifier? Excuse me.
Online.
Online? Yes. Oh, okay.
Aloha, Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of CARES. So this is a good resolution. And when I talk to the DOA and the DLNR, and I go to the board meetings, from a research perspective, this resolution can be more helpful by redirecting legislation for next year to prepare specificity in language for grant application processes for the network in the work group to focus on successful applications for federal funds from Congress. So for example, I would amend this resolution to say research statutory language and specificities in federal legislations and federally administered funding programs to assist state, counties, and universities in grant applications for securing funds for invasive species management. The federal offices are very technical, so the language, I think, may need to appear in the state and county's ordinance or the university's website. Or there could be more work with the work group to just talk to the federal level to see what they value, effectiveness of program or technicalities in law and ordinance, or both. And so, for example, if the grants were to mitigate invasive species to protect endangered species in forestry and wildlife, it'd help if these keywords were to appear in the grant application, the state legislation, and the county's ordinance, or the university's project's website. And I'd also advise on timing the next revision of the Biosecurity Act to take into consideration the grants distributed according to the due date on the federal website to deduct what's been paid for by Congress, because USDA and universities' websites are very transparent with who gets the grant and who doesn't. So why pay for so much from the state if the work group can help alleviate the burden to get grants for the people in the network? So I'm voting for this to be passed out.
Thank you,
And
Angela.
also, okay.
Your time is up. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Members, questions?
Yes, to ag. So Cedric, what exactly is the comments that the Department of Agriculture is saying?
The department is saying that the funding for the ISC comes through the Hawaii Invasive Species Council budget item that goes through DLNR. And in addition to that, we are reviewing Hal's proposal to help with combating LFA on the windward side. And we are planning to provide them some funding through that agreement. And then we also have the MOU with DLNR and I believe UH for invasive species management. And that's something that we're working on to collaborate on the efforts to go towards invasives.
So what is that based on all of that, what is your reaction or comments regarding this resolution?
We support the intent. We believe that we do need additional funding with 0.4 of the state budget going to Department of Agriculture. We're already squeezed thin with the resources that we have. And so any additional resources like the vehicle HB 427 will go a long way to helping out additional entities like HAL and HISC to continue their work.
Okay, but I guess so it's the legislature that give you guys the money, right?
Correct.
This resolution, which my trouble with this resolution is urging the state and the county's other agency. We are the state. We are the ones that put the money in. So we're doing a resolution to urge ourselves to give more money. I mean, Chair, that's the problem I have with this resolution.
Understood.
So, yeah, I mean, and this is a resolution. We have bills. That should be the vehicle. This resolution is not anything. It has no effect of law. It doesn't have anything. It urges the counties, the state. I mean, we, the state, you get your monies from us. So I'm not sure I would pass this resolution and I'd be in defiance of it if I don't go ahead and pass all those bills. I mean, you understand what I'm saying,
I'm
right?
understanding what you're saying.
And so that's why I'm wondering, I'm not sure what went into the decision makers to put this resolution together. I can see, urging the counties because they don't possibly do invasive species or put funding for them, but I don't know if they have the funding. So if we give them an unfunded mandate, they're going to come to us and ask us for the funds, right? If we're going to mandate. But obviously this resolution doesn't mandate anything because it can't. So then where are we left with this resolution? Maybe urging them to go get federal grants? That might make more sense.
And we have a position for a grant writer right now that we're going for to help us obtain more funding through grants to go towards community organizations and other entities like
So at the
this.
end of the day, what does this resolution do?
I think it tries to emphasize the spirit of collaboration that needs to happen between both the state, counties, and federal partners to combat
And who's
invasives.
going to do that?
with DOA is statutorily tasked with that.
Okay, so we need this resolution to urge you to do that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm listening to what Senator Dean's talking about, and I don't disagree at all with what you said, because to the point that the legislature has committed a lot of funds in the last 12 months towards this initiative. I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit. The top 2 areas where we need to spend money for biosecurity, where?
It's personnel and chemicals that's needed to treat whatever invasives we're going after, whether it's CRB, LFA, or COKIs. Those are our top priorities, along with the brown tree snake.
Okay, so funding the personnel for inspection and response, and then
The money for the chemicals, yeah.
okay.
And we're building up our plant quarantine division, as well as our plant pest control division right now, with the funding that was allocated last year. And then we're making the positions permanent this year with HB 427. And our goal is to build up the infrastructure and the personnel within DOA to be able to assist with all of these other community organizations. For example, if they're housed going out to Lanikai, that we can send DOA agents with them to help treat and make sure that we're getting it right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, any other questions?
One for invasive
Thank you.
species. Reintroduce yourself.
My name is Nate Doobie. I'm the OISC manager. That's the Oahu Invasive Species Committee. There's an invasive species committee on each island, and we all, although we work on some different species, there is some overlap, and we do all work on a unified front in the spirit of collaboration, also with our other state, county, and federal partners.
Okay, thank you. And there's been more interest in invasive species this last 18 months than I've ever seen since I've been dealing with this stuff. You heard what DOA said. Do you agree with the top 2 priorities?
Yes, I do. I think personnel and then the ability to treat, whether that's treatment chemicals, whether that's treatment equipment, but there are so many issues, there's so many threats that are being posed by invasive species that no one agency has enough capacity. So I think the spirit of this resolution is to recognize that some of the important work that's being done by my agency and the other invasive species committees and some of the other agencies under the Pacific Cooperative Studies Unit, if we want to have successful eradications of species like little fire ant and coqui frog, we are struggling with the amounts that we're getting right now. We have our outreach staff who's typically this is just speaking on behalf of OISC. Our outreach staff is pulling double duty right now. They're out in the field 3 to 4 days a week on top of all of their outreach duties, helping to eradicate little fire ant. And we did have that regional eradication that was led by Hawaii Ant Lab and the Oahu Invasive Species Committee in Lanikai over 11 months across over 85 properties. And we did have some staff help from DOA and probably 10 to 12 other agencies, but it was led by Hawaii Ant Lab and OISC. And so we know that we can have success, but if we're not getting the resources in our organizations, then it's going to be hard for us to be successful in other areas and across other species. So while we do support all of our partners getting more funding, including the Department of Agriculture, we really need more resources and sustained resources to allow us to plan a lot better. Because when you're a 100% soft-funded agency like an ISC and an Island Invasive Species Committee, it's just very difficult to plan more than 9 to 12 months in advance. So,
Okay, thank you, Chair.
So, Nate, what's at the top of the list statewide?
statewide
Which
would
critter is the worst that you guys are most concerned about right now?
I would say it's the top 3, and that's the 3 priority pests that the MOU between the university, DLNR, and DOA have signed on to, and that's little fire ant, that's coqui frog, and that's coconut rhinoceros beetle. But I do want to highlight that there is a lot of important work going on other species, and when we're successful you folks don't see it. Now, we do work really hard for education and awareness in the community, but the reason that Myconia is not a huge issue and you don't see a ton about it in the news on Oahu is because OISC has been going after Myconia, hiking in the forest, flying in helicopters, camping, doing very difficult remote wildland work to keep those populations at bay since 2001, since we were founded. So I just want to highlight there are some high priority pests right now. We do need to leverage all of our resources and continue to work on those, but we can't forget about the work that we're already doing, because the ramifications of letting some of those species that we've had a handle on for years and years get out of control, you're just adding to the problem. And so getting more resources to help with the early stages of, checks, inspections at the ports and prevention there, that's always going to be the most help, but we do need capacity at the ISCs.
All right, thank you, Nate.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So have you folks been testifying on bills to get more resources?
Yes.
Yes, and you've asked for bills and asked for money?
We get the majority of our funding through the Hawaii Invasive Species Council. That's the mechanism that we've always been provided funding from the legislature through. And we've met with, I think, the vast majority of legislators and explained the situation. And we've had priority bills of SB 1100 and HB 427. And you can look back at the testimony for all of that. But we're working with legislators, and they've continued to kind of direct us to the council because that's a competitive grant process. So each year we put forward, like, here's our plan, here's what we want to work on. The council deliberates and they decide who gets the funding and which amounts. So we've been testifying in support of increasing the HISC funding across all of the measures that were introduced, because what happens is there's just so much important invasive species work that goes on.
Right.
There hasn't been enough HISC funding historically to fund it
I
up.
think the point that I'm making is that that's where it comes from the bills, from working with the legislature, talking to people. But if it fails, do you think this resolution is going to, you know what I'm saying? It's like, if we're not funding it, then we're urging ourselves right now to fund it when we hear from you on the matters of a legislation and bills and funding, because a resolution has no effect of anything but a sentiment that folks wanted. And we hear that sentiment when you come in, and the pressure should be on us passing the bills and putting the money there to come forward with a resolution. I'm not saying it's a bad resolution. I'm just saying that, it's not going to amount to anything, and your resources is going to come from us putting our money where our mouth is. And for me to pass a bill urging myself, that's crazy. I should be giving you the money. And trust me, there's nobody more supportive of getting rid of invasive species and getting rid of feral chickens and all of that than myself. And so certainly support it, but this resolution is not going to change anything. I mean, it's not going to change. All of us sitting here, we're all guilty if we no more money are going there. So to then say, oh, we passed this resolution, to me, that's shibai, right?
Well, yeah, I do agree with that, but I also think it's, I didn't write the resolution, of course, but
you're supporting it. So.
Absolutely, and I think it's we're supporting in the spirit of collaboration, because we do have federal funds, and some folks at the state, at the DLNR, at HISC have been fantastic at leveraging the limited HISC and state resources that we get into federal funds, but we all know the situation at the federal level right now. So I think the idea is that, at least one of the ideas from my mind and in my support, is that that's hopefully going to put on paper, hey, we recognize this is important, and not just for the state, but this is important for the federal level. So maybe
And the counties.
And the counties as well. So maybe that will hold some weight with them, and that will help galvanize some support for us at those levels as well. So I do understand your frustrations and your messaging, but that's why we are supporting it at OISC.
Well, having been on the council and having get resolutions now, I mean, it's read and it's thrown in the rubbish can. I hate to say it, but that's the reality. So that's the life of a reso, and you can point to anybody in the legislature who have kept these resolutions or actually acted on a resolution, then I'd be highly surprised on that. But I'm just saying that, I just find it ludicrous for us to pass a resolution asking ourselves to go ahead and urge ourselves to put more money, because we should be putting more money. Shame on us for not doing that. But there's a lot of other needs as well that needs to get funded. And with everything that's happening on the federal level, every department, every entity, every nonprofit is coming and saying, we need more funds. And yet, the community is saying, with less taxes, cut my taxes, so we cut the taxes. And more benefits, we gotta increase all the benefits for our workers. So, I don't know how that's gonna come about, because there's certainly not enough resources, not just for you guys, but for everybody across the board.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. And believe me, I do not envy your folks' job of, trying to decide how these resources get split up. But for this measure and for the other measures that have been introduced, we just want to lend our support and make sure that folks understand that if we want a successful chance, because we're the second line of defense at the ISKs.
Yes, and it should be in a bill. It
Yeah.
should be in the bills, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we continue to support any piece of legislation, any measure that gets introduced that, brings attention to invasive species and biosecurity, or that provides additional resources. We're trying to hit it on all fronts essentially right now. And that's the intent behind our support, is this is another layer of intent. Put it into a reso, make sure it's out there and available for folks, if nothing else. But I do understand your comments and appreciate the insight and all the effort that you folks have put forward into thinking about invasive species and biosecurity, because it has become a much more popular topic, I think, at the legislature over the last 18 months.
Thank you, Nate.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
I just have a comment, and I'm not sure that I have read anything lately regarding the whether or not you guys have made any, any insights or measurements to help get rid of these pests, like the beetle. I found that in Mililani where I live. Little fire ants I've not seen for a while, so I don't know, and little fire ants have been around for a while. I'm not sure if there's any reports out that we can look at that shows, what is being done, what more needs to be done to inform at least myself. And I don't sit on the ag committee, so I don't, hear all the reports or see all the reports. But if there's something that you guys can at least let the legislators and let the senators know, what reports have been written up or where we stand on some of the things you guys have been doing, it would be helpful to us.
Sure, absolutely. And I think that's a really good point. We do produce a annual report for the Hawaii Invasive Species Council for all the work that they fund us. And I believe that's housed on their HISC website. But you could always reach out to any of the entities that are funded by HISC, and they should be able to provide you for the annual report. And some of the pieces of testimony on previous measures this session that OISC has submitted testimony on, I did include quite a bit of reports, so I'm happy to send that directly to you. Otherwise, you can always check our websites also. I think we're working on putting more information on our website about, where little fire ant generally is. We have to be careful about addresses and things, but there is a lot of benchmarks that we have to put benchmarks in any of our proposals, because that's the nature of being soft funded. If we say we're going to do X amount of acres of survey and control, we have to do X amount of acres of survey and control, unless there's, some crazy circumstance that prevents us from doing so. And when that happens, we work with the funder for that. But one of the nice things about the Hawaii Invasive Species Council reports is that we put all of the information we do island-wide into that report, because that's a stipulation of that proposal. So all of that information is in there.
Thank you, Nate, and thank you for
You're
all the
welcome.
work that you do.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, we'll take a brief recess for decision-making. Reconvening the 145 joint AEN-HRE. Chairs have conferred. We want to pass this reso out, HCR 130, with some amendments. Chair Kim?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I want to emphasize that certainly I have been very much supportive of us taking care of our environment, and that invasive species certainly are one that threatens our local environment, especially with us depending upon tourism. I know coqui frogs for the longest time is something that I have been concerned about, not to mention all the other fire ants and rhinoceros beetles and so forth. So the intent is not that I don't want to see such a resolution pass, but that I want it to be relevant. I want it to make sense. And so I find it curious that we would urge ourselves when we in fact may not be, may be the problem if we're not funding enough. But as you all know, we have other important issues that we have to fund. So I'm going to recommend that in the title of the resolution, that instead of urging ourselves, that we urge the counties, Congress, and other relevant agencies to provide increase in sustained funding. Also on page 2, lines 40, again, the word state replaces with Congress. And in the be it resolved, again, replace state with Congress, and that we further say that we urge all of these bodies to seek federal grants to effectuate what it is this resolution is trying to do.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, the chair's recommendation will be passed with the amendment, and also there are some tech amendments. So for AEN, chair votes aye. Vice chair.
Thank you. On HCR 130, House Draft 1, with passing with amendments, chair votes aye, vice chair votes aye. Senator DeCoit is excused. Senator Rhodes. Aye. Senator Awa is excused. Chair, you have 3 in favor. Motion adopted.
Thank you, members.
For higher education, the same recommendation to pass with amendments. Any discussion, members? Not, chair votes aye.
Chair votes aye, vice chair votes aye. Senator Fukunaga.
Aye.
Senator Hashimoto.
Aye.
Senator Favela.
Aye.
Measures adopted, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and that concludes the 145 agenda.